I'm now going to describe the incidents that happened in December of 2012. I was working at a place called the Arboretum, and it's basically a nature center with gardens and greenhouse and nature trails. And myself and some maintenance guys were finishing up with the fall cleanup. We were standing near a field, and a strong wind blew across the field, and I instantly smelled Drax, or the smell of a sharp reptilian smell. And I looked in the direction of the wind, and I saw flashes of the beings. They were very tall. They were wearing white. That day, as fate would have it, they began to spray the skies right over the Arboretum with chemtrails. There were dozens of planes. And they sprayed the hell out of the sky on the 3rd and all through the 4th. And of course, it was cloudy for the next 2 weeks. I guess that was part of the weather modification program. And they spray a certain agent in the air, and I don't know how they do it, but it causes a lot of heavy cloud formations. And my guess is they're doing that to prevent maybe satellite photos of the area. The other reason that I think they might be doing that is due to the fact that Dracs don't like direct sunlight. That might be another reason. I believe they're nocturnal. They have real large eyes. My guess is for more optic sensory perception. And I wouldn't be surprised if on Alpha Draconis they're cavern dwellers, of course, and nocturnal. So now that they noticed that I could sense them pretty well, I could smell them really good. I guess a lot of people wouldn't pay attention to a lot of senses. They smell something they wouldn't really notice. So I sensed these beings again. I would see flashes of them, and this time they were wearing helmets, and it was accompanied with more of like a chemical agent smell, as if they were trying to hide what they smelled like. Because when I saw them initially, they had on the white suits but no helmet. I could see their orange heads. When I saw them the following couple of days, they had on some sort of helmet. So at home, I was living at my father's house, who's an agent. He's a handler. And they started, I would say, on probably the 4th or 5th of December 2012, they began the electromagnetic energy oscillators in the house there. Now, my dad told me probably, if not the 3rd, on the 4th, he told me that the car that it's his car, it's an extra car, but I had been using it to go back and forth to work. He said the car needed to go in for repairs, so he had to drive me to work the next couple days. So even though I usually left early, I had to, wait for him to get up. He would get up about 8 or 9, and so I would get up earlier than that, maybe 5 or 6. So I lived in the basement. I basically took the furniture from my old apartment and kind of arranged it into a little apartment down in the basement there. And the basement, if they finished it, it would have been halfway decent. But it has windows and a sliding glass door and everything. It's just cement floor and the insulation's all exposed. But just to give you an idea what it was, so I had a small section of that I made into like a little apartment. So I'm sitting there on the sofa, kind of waiting for him to get ready to drive me to work. And I noticed that the electromagnetic energy oscillators have been engaged. And what it feels like is, of course, a vibration feeling, as if the room is buzzing. But of course, the room isn't buzzing, it's affecting you. And it feels like you're kind of being shook, and you perceive the room is vibrating. It's also sedating at first. You feel slightly drunk and disoriented, and I knew they had turned it on. And eventually, about 9:30, I'd say, my dad calls down, "Yeah, I'm ready to leave now." I follow him to drop the car off at the mechanic's garage, and I get into his car, and I noticed that there's an oscillator installed in his car as well. And what it feels like is an energy radiating from the dashboard area of his car. Now, I realized that he was also, of course, affected. He was in the same house. His eyes got very dark. His voice got extremely deep. And he acted like he was used to it, though. He acted like he knew what was happening. And he was used to it. It was like old hat to him. And he kind of regarded me in a way that that suggested he was used to maintaining control in a situation like this, while other people would get disoriented. So once at work, even though I was outside, I felt as though I were still affected by this. Essentially, I'd been planted, and at first it was difficult to keep my head in the work, because once again you feel disoriented, and I knew that I had to finish a walkway. So I started working on that, and even though it was off season, like I said, it was the beginning of December, there wasn't really any reason to go to an outdoor nature center, but they began to have heavy traffic, even for, there's more traffic there than there would be usually on a summer day. And so these cars would constantly just drive in and drive out, and I would try to focus on my work, but I noticed that when I would glance up, there would be a strange cast of characters. A man pulled up, and he asked a maintenance over there, so he kind of waved me over to the car. So it's my job to kind of walk over there. So I walked over. "How you doing, sir? May I help you?" And he asked me in a German or a Polish accent where the exit was. And it was a rather stupid question, because the exit was obviously right about 10 or 20 feet straight ahead where the street was, you know. But he had on contact lenses that made his eyes look like slits. Now, I know what people's eyes look like when they get planted. They don't usually become slits that I'm aware of. So I'm pretty sure those were contact lenses that were going to be used to try to trigger me or freak me out. But I thought it was kind of funny anyway. And I said, "Yeah, just drive 10 feet out, dude." So basically, as more and more of these people drove by, this was basically witchcraft. They're attempting to plant you or project basically their demonic consciousness onto you. This is how they do spells. So I tried to ignore it, but a lot of this negative energy being focused at me agitated me. At times it would cloud my mind, and it became like an altered state. And what I mean by that is that you begin to have like a heightened attention to detail. You lose focus on what is important, and it's easy to get frustrated. So later on that day, my dad came and picked me up, and he asked me a series of questions on the ride home, basically to see if I had all my faculties together, or how bad I'd been affected due to the electromagnetic energy weapons being deployed upon me and the subsequent planting Around December the 7th, I got my car back, and of course, if you can't guess it, one of those oscillators had been placed in my vehicle as well. That was the reason why my dad had it brought into his CIA buddy's mechanics garage there. And Saturday the 8th of December 2012, even though my father and stepmother would usually stay home through the afternoon, they got dressed up and left around the afternoon, around 1 or 2. I believe they were called out because they were called out by their handler, who knew that there was going to be a huge amount of energy deployed against the house at that point. So I was in my room, and an oil truck pulls up in front of the house, and soon after, the whole house seems to start to shake with energy weapons. So they were deploying not only the electromagnetic energy oscillator that was already within the house, but they brought this souped up thing that I consider to be the Ark device. And it was transported in the back of an oil tanker that would be used to like fill up your oil tank at home. It wasn't a huge oil tanker that would fill up gasoline stations, but one of those miniature oil tanker trucks. I want to explain some of the technology that's used to communicate. I already explained the synthetic telepathy used. That's basically the gray implants. But they could also, I don't really know the science, but they seem to be able to charge the particles in the air and bounce radio waves off the charged particles, which that you could, if you could listen real carefully, you could perceive. They also have ways of projecting energy at people and affecting brave waves and triggering the cranial nerves to act in sync with the auditory receptors in the brain. So this is how high-level spies or witches pass information stealthily. I know it sounds crazy, but that's technology. So as they hit me with an energy weapon, they began a telepathic communication with me. And the first thing that they dared me to do is just wish the pain on someone else. So you don't have to tolerate this. Wish it on someone else, like a female, for instance. And I said no. Then it went on to say, will you take the pain for her? And I said, for who? And they're like, for Joan of Arc. I said, yes. I wouldn't wish it on Joan of Arc. I wouldn't wish it on any female. So the pain got worse and worse, and it just went on. And they dared me again to wish it on Joan of Arc. So I began meditating and breathing, and then the voice changed to a female voice, and the voice said, Lord, my king. And I said, Lord, my queen. And she said, are you God? I said, no, but you're God. And then there's a little more communication between us, and then there became this overlapping, screeching, screaming voice, a high-pitched demonic voice that was screaming obscenities at me for a while, and I basically said fuck you to it.